Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. The big question everybody's asking is, when are these markets going to turn around? Everything is primed for the markets to turn around. Yeah, think what's on my mind and what's on everybody's mind. These markets are primed to turn around, but Iran is an issue right now. The Straits of Hormuz are an issue right now. And you know what else is really an issue, which has a real thorn in my side? Is Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair. He doesn't lower interest rates this week. Are you kidding me? History would show that the Federal Reserve, at any time like this, you would lower interest rates. And by the way, he says that oil is part of the problem. Joe Biden, when he was in office, oil was well over $100 and interest rates were at 1.5%. So you tell me what's at play here. It's a sabotage. Jerome Powell is sabotaging President Trump, the Republicans, which is the big picture for the midterms, and even more importantly, that he's hurting you. But the markets would take off if he would have just lowered interest rates, and then he says he's going to stick around. We're going to get to all of this because there's some things President Trump could do. And my buddy over at VRAinsider.com, Vertical Research Advisors, had a great piece of advice for President Trump. And so I'm going to bring on the CEO of Vertical Research Advisors to talk about that piece of advice for President Trump of how you handle this Powell situation to let the economy get back to the business of taking off. As I mentioned, VRAinsider.com is the website I want you to go to. You get a 2-free-week trial. So a 2-week free trial is how I should say it. A 2-week free trial of their morning newsletter, where they spell out their positions that they are in, that they're investing in, that I'm investing in, and the sentiment of where they see the market heading, what to do, rest your mind at ease a little bit. They're great guys over there. I promise you, this 2-week free trial, you're going to love it. You get access to everything, including the back end, including their portfolio, just 15 positions, no more than that. Makes it really easy, not day trading, but makes it really easy for you to make some money, averaging 35% returns, which is pretty fantastic. All right, VRAinsider.com, VRAinsider.com. With that, I say we get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, welcome back, everybody. You know, the markets are the big question, and I want to bring in right away Kip Herriage. He is the CEO of Vertical Research Advisors, VRAinsider.com, as I mentioned. Kip, first off, welcome to the program.
Great to be back again, Grant. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I want to get to Jerome Powell, but first, what are you telling your subscribers about these markets are down now? It's down longer than anybody really expected. We thought this would kind of rally back up, but Iran's lasting maybe a little longer than anybody expected. I actually called the end of March, so we'll see if I'm wrong about that. I had said by the end of March, we should have this thing wrapped up, so we'll see. But your thoughts on where we're headed?
All great questions and great points. I agree with you. I think, and that's what really we thought going into this, because of, the action against Iran last year, that was a one-nighter and it was over with. So I think a lot of us really thought that was going to be the case this time. And now it's gone longer. And of course, the destruction seems to be pretty complete. Trump teases us about every day that, hey, we're very close. We won this essentially, and we're about to end this. So I think the markets are going to start looking through this. This is what we're telling people. Selling here is not a mistake. It's a massive mistake. Warren Buffett comes to mind, right? Be greedy when others are fearful. And right now we're seeing massive levels of fear out there in all of our sentiment indicators. The fear and greed index is down to a 16. It can only go to 1, right? So this is extreme fear. All of the sentiment indicators we see are starting to hit extreme fear. And so, we're only down 6% from the highs, right? But it's felt a lot worse because, again, we're at war. And so people are scared. And you've got all the media teaming up against Trump. It's relentless. Everybody, this is how the propaganda machine works, right? But this is what we're telling people. Look, we love our positions. We love the markets. We are in a generational bull market. That's been our call for more than 3 years. It's been the right call. And I think the smart money, matter of fact, we're very confident in this call. The smart money looks at this kind of opportunity and says, okay, that's when you add to positions. That's when you put on new positions, and that's what we've been doing.
All right. So the double down aspect of this dip that we're experiencing now, you're saying is a good time to get in. I guess everybody fears, can it go lower? I mean, I guess it could. We call it dollar cost averaging as you buy all the way down. So when it starts going back up, you expect it to go lower?
I think very little. We had a really good comeback this week after, look, the markets are up solidly on Monday and Tuesday, and it was a good start to the week. The whole tone began to change. And then what we get on Wednesday, we got one Jerome Powell, who is the worst Fed chair, certainly of my times, right? And also what we know about Jay Powell is, and this is documented, Jay Powell, on the day he does his press conference after the FOMC statement comes out, 30 minutes later we get the presser, right? Jay Powell is known as the worst Fed chair in history when it comes to the performance of the stock market when he starts speaking. And that's what we saw again today. I think maybe we can get into that in just a minute, right, because he basically collapsed the market on Wednesday and it carried over to Thursday, but now we're seeing more strength. And we think we're very close to the lows.
All right. So there's two things from Jerome Powell's press conference yesterday that I believe had a drastic effect on the markets. One, that he would not lower interest rates, and two, that he's going to hang around a little bit longer. And he really used it as a threat. And I think it was a wink and a nod to Democrats as well. So I'll get into that in a moment. First, this is him on interest rates.
Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy rate unchanged. We see the current stance of monetary policy as appropriate to promote progress toward our maximum employment and 2% inflation goals. The implications of developments in the Middle East for the U.S. economy are uncertain. We will remain attentive to risks to both sides of our dual mandate.
I don't think he's paying any attention to risks, because if he was, you would lower interest rates here, not leave them the same. Kip, your thoughts?
That's exactly right. In your intro, you nailed it. Look, it's all about Trump. I think even just a somewhat honest observer can look at what's happening here with Jerome Powell and this Federal Reserve and can say, this wouldn't be happening in a Biden administration. And we know it wouldn't. You made the point a minute ago. Just 4 years ago, when inflation was still 7%, Jay Powell kept the Fed funds rate at 1.5%. Oil was 115, right? Oil's under 100 now, right? Inflation is just over 2%. This is clearly a sign of get Trump. And this is classic Fed trap. This is what they do. And so they certainly do it to Trump. They've done it in both of his terms now. And so, look, Powell was supposed to be out of office in May. That may be sliding now. That's why the markets got rocked this week. It's because Jay Powell's staying in the job, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
All right. So, you mentioned that he doesn't lower interest rates here. What gets me, Kip, is that I get you can have political vendettas against everybody. We're big boys. I get that it's a brutal game. Go run commercials against the guy. Donate money to an opponent. But when you actively do something to inflict pain on one individual and you're willing to sacrifice the American economy, which then gets down to the American middle class, right, you're willing to sacrifice them over a political vendetta, that's pretty low.
Yeah, in his opening there, he says that we're here to help all the people, right? That's our job, is to help all Americans. He says that every time he opens a Fed press conference, and it's just not true. The second, we have two Americas, right? First America is doing great, 3.5% rates where the Fed funds rates now, not going to hurt anybody in the first America. Corporate America has never been stronger, structurally speaking. So corporate America doesn't borrow money anymore, by and large. The biggest companies have too much cash. But for the average person that has to go out there and finance things on a credit card and just get slaughtered, right? To see their mortgages never go down from their 6-7% rate that they got stuck with. This is where the real damage is taking place. That's why the economy is softening. That's why payroll numbers are getting a little weaker. Wage growth is a little weaker, had been really going strong. Any honest Federal Reserve would be cutting rates here. And again, I think even, again, any honest observer can look at this and say it's the case. The problem is, if you watch the press conferences we did, these there wasn't a single person in the room, not a single reporter in the room, that would ask him a tough question about any of this, right? They're all in it together. Yeah. And I feel sorry for Trump. I really do, because this is another version of get Trump, and he's very limited to what he can do.
Literally, you pointed out in your morning newsletter that I urge everyone to sign up for, VRAinsider.com, VRAinsider.com. You get a 2-week free trial on that. You literally pointed out this morning, The question a reporter should have asked was, hey, you had interest rates at 1.5% when inflation was going through the roof and oil was at $115, as you point out. What changes now? Why are you leaving it at 3.5%? When you clearly didn't have that model under Joe Biden. Not one reporter asked that question, Kip.
And it's not just about where rates are now. Again, the economy is going to be okay at 3.5%. Okay, we should be 2.5%, maybe even 2% right now. If Biden were president or any other Democrat, we would be. But it's not just that. Rates are going up now. We're at a time of war. Interest rates are going up. That's never happened. We've done the research. This has never in history happened before, going back to pre-World War II. When the U.S. goes to war, has a conflict like this, the Federal Reserve always jumps in, floods the banking system with liquidity using open market operations. They do this every single time. But this time what happened? From the first missile fired, the interest rates started going up. That was the first thing I looked at. And I told everybody, this is different. Why aren't rates dropping here? Why isn't the Fed coming in and helping the economy out? And they just haven't. And again, the only conclusion I can come to, this is just as get Trump.
Yeah, it sure is. The other aspect to not lowering the interest rates was that he mentioned he is going to stay around as long as there's not a new person confirmed. There's another reason as well. I think what he's telling the Democrats is gum up the system, drag this confirmation out. If I'm President Trump, I bring John Thune in and I say, one, you can't get me the SAVE Act. You've not been able to open DHS up. I want the Federal Reserve Chairman. You tell me right now whether you're going to be able to do this or not, and you start putting the screws to John Thune. Let me play the clip of Jerome Powell here. Basically, I think giving the Democrats the playbook here.
If my successor is not confirmed by the end of my term as chair, I would serve as chair pro tem until he is confirmed. That is what the law calls for. That's what we've done on several occasions, including involving me.
So he's basically saying, gum it up and I'll stay as long as you need me to.
Yeah, his term ends in May. That's when he's supposed to leave. But, they found the deep state is very crafty. And they found a way to trap Trump. And I think that's what's happened here. I think they've got him trapped. Now, Trump has an out that we could talk about, too, by doing away with this lawsuit. But look, Trump and DOJ have gone after two people in the Federal Reserve. Lisa Cook, who's a Fed governor. They found out she was guilty of mortgage fraud, and they thought, you know what, you probably shouldn't be on the Federal Reserve as a governor if you can't even handle a mortgage correctly, right? That was clear mortgage fraud. She had two residences. She used one. She tried to use both as a primary residence. And now the big one now that is the reason Jay Powell's staying on is this DOJ action against Powell and the Fed against their remodeling they're doing at the Federal Reserve, right? $3.5 billion remodeling, which is just ridiculous with overruns. Trump's made the point that when they issued this lawsuit against Powell and the Fed to investigate this, they just wanted to get subpoena power, and that was denied by a liberal district judge. But Trump made the point: here's why I'm doing this. This is going to cost American taxpayers $3 to $4 billion for a remodel of the Federal Reserve headquarters, when we could build a brand new one for probably a quarter of that amount. So there's clearly something wrong here. But now, as we saw yesterday, they found a way to say, you know what? And Tom Tillis, Republican senator, head of the banking committee, is actually supporting this, right? He's saying he won't allow the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, to even come up for hearings until this issue is settled with this lawsuit.
Well, Tom Tillis is an asshole. Excuse my language. Right. He's the worst of the worst there, and he hates Trump.
And he's leaving anyway.
And he's leaving anyway, Trump. Exactly. So this is sour grapes on his part.
That's right.
He might as well be working for the Democrats. This is the same thing with Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins as well. I really believe they're traitors of the American people who voted for action. Some of that action was for President Trump to go in, uproot the deep state, start getting this country back on track, and yes, get the Fed on track. And so the fact that Tillis is going to hold it up, to me, it falls back on Thune. Thune should be telling him, you're not pulling this nonsense. Not under my Senate, Kip.
Right. and Scott Bessent. I mean, Scott Bessent doesn't have a problem with getting in somebody's face and making waves. And so between Bessent and Thune, yeah, the power should be brought to bear against Powell and the Fed. But the problem is, and this is the bottom line problem, is this is the banking cartel. The world is run by 7 cartels, as taught to me by my old friend G. Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is the Bible on the creation of the Federal Reserve. And Ed taught us that there are 7 cartels that run the world. The banking cartel is number 1, by far the most powerful. You'd think it'd be the military or something like that. Yeah. It's the banking cartel. And so, and the Federal Reserve runs that, central banks run that cartel. And so that's what Trump is up against. That's what he's trying to tear down. That's the bottom line, what he's trying to do here. But now, because of these shenanigans, they're trying to get Powell to stay in office until with these court cases continue, he may stay in office until 2028 when his term ends. Because his term ends in May, but he's authorized to stay on the Federal Reserve as a governor for 2 more years.
Wow. So here's the thing. We've got this DOJ investigation into the overruns. By the way, it's $3.5 billion. I think Cowboy Stadium, now albeit Cowboy Stadium's over 10 years old now, but I think it was $1 billion to build Cowboy Stadium. And it's like the greatest stadium still in the NFL today. Right. $3.5 billion for an office building seems like an awful lot of money. But so there's this DOJ investigation. This is what Powell said about why he wants to stay on as well. And I think your idea of Trump calling his bluff here is a good one. Let me play this and then get you to lay it out for me.
I have no intention of leaving the board until the investigation is well and truly over with transparency and finality. And I would refer you to the statement that was in the Fed's brief that you all have seen. And I won't have anything more for you on that.
All right. So as long as this investigation's going on, I'm not leaving. What do you think should happen? Your advice to President Trump?
I know a lot of people think, well, Trump's got a big ego and there's no way he would back down from this. But I'll make the point that Trump reads the room better than any politician, certainly that I've ever seen. And he knows when the tide is turned. This tide is turning. Rates should be going down. It's hurting the American people. Trump sees that. He knows this economy will be rocking and rolling if we can just get rates going lower. Get this war over, rates going down, stock market goes boop, economy of 5% GDP. That's where we're headed anyway, right? Yeah. So the solution is, again, call his bluff. Drop the lawsuit. He's reading the room, right? Drop the lawsuit. Let's move on. Get Powell out of there, because at that point, Tillis would have to give a hearing to Warsh, and then Warsh could be installed in May as he's supposed to, and this nightmare of Jay Powell could be behind us.
I think you're right, and you convinced me. It's too important. The economy, getting interest rates back, it would be like rocket fuel on the economy to get interest rates down and Jerome Powell out. Just the news that he was going to be replaced finally and officially would send this to the stratosphere. So I think President Trump could do exactly that. And look, Jerome Powell is not John Brennan, Dr. Fauci, any of these real bad actors that stole from the American people, stole sovereignty from the American people, rigged elections, basically put people in prison on bogus, trumped-up charges. Jerome Powell is a headache. He's cost a lot of people a lot of money, but he's not at the Fauci and Brennan level. I say if that's the deal you got to make with Powell, you drop the investigation. Who cares? We know it was a waste. It's not going to go anywhere anyway. Drop it. And as you said, Tillis would have no choice but to push Warsh through, and then we're back on track.
And we are, because the markets anticipate 6 months out. The markets are a discounting mechanism. They're always forward-looking. So if word starts to leak out that Trump, and he was asked today, or yesterday, by the way, in an interview about this, he said, well, it's something we're considering. So it's on his mind. And if Trump were to do this, the markets would start to anticipate the end result, meaning in May, Kevin Warsh is going to be the new Fed chair. He's going to be dovish. Rates are going to start coming down. The American people are going to be helped. And the markets would immediately start moving sharply higher. Again, you get the combination of this war ending and Kevin Warsh being the new Fed chair. And that's why we're telling people selling here would be a massive mistake. We're on our VRA investing system. We track as market timers. We look at what's moving the markets and also how to time the markets, right? So from the macro point of view, this is one of the most bullish times that we've been in the history of this, over 30 years. The economy is incredibly strong. The one big beautiful bill, Trump economic miracle, right? It's really ready to lift off. That's why we believe GDP growth is going to 5% this year, 8% by 2028. I think the Dow Jones is going to double from here in the next 4 years. We've got some very bullish forecasts, and we've been right to have those the last 3.5 years. But that's the one thing the markets need, is really to get Powell gone and to see closure, the beginning of an end to this war with Iran. And I think anybody that's buying stocks here is going to be extraordinarily happy.
Well, I think you're right, and I'm going to start the process of doubling down on many of these stocks because I think it is only upwards from here. Your newsletter really helps set my mind at ease every morning, and I'm grateful for that. And you put some real value into the reasoning behind why you're making the predictions you are, which is very helpful. Why don't you tell people the best reason why they ought to sign up for this 2 free week trial of VRAinsider.com?
All right, I've done this 41 years. I've made every mistake you could possibly make, and I've made most of them 3 or 4 times. But about 20 years ago, I got tired of making those mistakes and just started the VRA in 2003. I was on Wall Street 15 years, took 7 companies public, managed several $100 million. And I loved what I did. It was time to leave. Retired at 38, started the VRA in 2003. And everything we do is based on our investing system called the VRA investing system. We have 12 screens, 70% fundamental, 30% technical. Make sure we're on the right side of the market. The market's going to go up, we want to be long. If the market's going to go down, we want to have cash built up, right? And we just don't see that now. We see a big rally in front of us. And so what we do essentially is this. We're not a brokerage firm. We don't take your money and invest it for you. We don't have those conflicts of interest. What we do is we tell you how we're positioning with our money. We tell you exactly what we're doing with our own money, like a hedge fund. What we're doing, you get a sneak peek and to see how we're building our portfolio, how we're structured. We never have more than 15 positions. We use common stocks, ETFs, gold, silver, Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies. And so we're not day traders. We're not short term. We're position builders. But again, we've averaged in the last 3 years, 37.7%. We've beaten the markets 19 to 22 years. This is all documented. And if you come and join us, you get 2 free weeks of everything that our members have access to. And you can make a decision if it's right for you or not. Thanks to Grant and other people great people like Grant. We've got several thousand subscribers really all over the world. And people tend to stay with us because we're honest. We try to take our best to do our best to take care of them. And again, we're right there with you every day and every step of the way.
Well, I'll tell you, you guys are great, and I couldn't be happier. VRAinsider.com. Kip Herriage, as always, it's a great pleasure to talk to you. Great insight on this. And I hope President Trump takes the advice. Let's get this investigation of Powell behind us, get him out, and get Warsh in. And we start the right direction on prosperity again.
If I can just add one thing,
yeah.
I got to tell you, thank you for the compliment. But watching your show at night, I can't tell how rewarding it, how the feeling it gives me, because you are steadfastly behind the president. That you've never wavered on that. But you're also honest. You see things, you call them right down the middle. And I think journalism would be a whole lot better if we had more people like you. So thank you for the great job you're doing. And again, thank you for the opportunity working with you.
What a great compliment, Kip, and I really do appreciate it. And compliments never get old with me. You want the best way to become my friend? Give me compliments and laugh at my jokes. and you'll be my best friend forever. And you got the bonus here is you give me good financial advice too. We'll be friends, as I said, forever. Kip Herriage, you're the best, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grant.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Let me remind you too. The only thing Kip was bearish on was my hair growth. If you've noticed, he says, no, it's just not in the cards for you, Stinchfield. And unfortunately, he was right about that. Oh, brother. VRAinsider.com. That's VRAinsider.com. Crush the market. These guys are great. You heard him spell it out for you. I urge you. You get 2 free weeks, access to everything. Go make it happen for yourself. Take control of your financial future. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We will see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. God bless you all. See you soon.